The second, joke, sorry. Bako di ay. Content of the grades, guys, again, it's PS 75. And the grading will be divided into three. We have period 1, period 2, and CFE. Period 1 and period 2, it would be 60%. And CFE, that would be 40%. Sige, ano na lang siya na ako, i-discuss na lang siya na ako ang content sa grade. Tomorrow, kapit na ako class ugma. Okay. So, yeah, let's start with this topic. Medyo ano yung kataas. Sorry ha. Naman bigyan ako, nagka-construction sa kong taas. Sige. So, review of the counting process. So, kaninga topic, guys, this is just a refresher of what you have discussed sa basic accounting ninyo or sa basic financial accounting and reporting ninyo, as well as yung corporation and partnership accounting basic ninyo. So basically, it's just a quick discussion about accounting in general. Okay? Okay. So, part 1, no? Pinaka-basic sa tanan, the double entry accounting. Now, I guess, no, you may be quite familiar with what we call the double entry accounting. No? It simply means that when you are going to be accounting for a transaction, there must be at least one debit and one credit. Ana ra dyan na siya. Double entry accounting, at least one debit, at least one credit. Next slide. Okay, learning outcomes, blah, blah, blah. I'll give you 1 minute to read this one. Siya. Basta lang sa guys, ha? So origins, meaning, and significance of debits and credits, elements of the financial statements, and basic accounting equation, and double entry. Now, kaninga topic, guys, especially on the basic accounting equation, I've noticed a lot of students, no, ilan ni ginakaligtaan ang theory of the accounting equation. Now, when you are going to be dealing with transactions in financial accounting and reporting, it's very good that you master the accounting equation. Accounting equation, di ba familiar mo? Assets is equals to liability plus owner's equity. Again, napipendre. Assets is equals to liability plus owner's equity. Or if di ka familiar sa term owner's equity, that's capital. Okay. Importante na siya kung mag-entry ka mo. Okay? Now, under the double entry theory, guys, no, the accounting equation should always be balanced. So, at all times, imong asset equals na siya sa imong liability plus owner's equity. Ana na siyang duwa, ana. Okay? So next is debits and credits. So definition, debit simply means, ano tandaan guys, there are theory questions regarding the definition of debits and the definition of a credit. I'm quite familiar of giving this one in your exam or your quiz. sa sa ACC 102 man ata to last year or last semester na unsay definition ka debit, unsay definition ka credit. Debit simply means the left side of the entry, di ba? Kung mag-entry ka, natay DR, natay debit, natay credit, CR. So say for example, receipt of accounts receivable, debit cash, credit, AR. So debit, XX, ari ka sa left side, AR, ari ka sa right side. Now, similarly, credit simply means the right side of the entry. Okay. Ano na siya? Okay. Significance depends on account. Okay. Now, of course, di ba? I think it's on the next slide. So, ano na lang siguro, just to give you a background, but I'm sure it now needs a slide later. Okay, question. Just raise your hand or answer or type in the chat box. If you debit an asset, what will happen to the asset? Basic na siya question. Open your mic, increase. Diba? So, kung ibali na to, kung i-credit na to ang asset, mag-unsa siya? Decrease. Now, for expense, if we debit an expense, what will happen to the expense? Increase. Similarly, if we credit an expense, decrease. For liability, reverse na po. No, if the liability is debited, what would happen? Unsa ang ano?
Only sir.
Unsa?
Only sir.
Only mong mag-decrease. If i-credit mo ang liability, excuse me, kasi na siya nag-open siyang mic dahil lang. Hindi ko makita yung name for a while. Misclick ka daw. Sige, for revenue, credit, increase, debit, decrease. Now, for contra asset, kasabot po sa meaning ka contra asset, what will happen if I credit a contra asset account? What will happen to the contra asset account? Increase, di ba? So example of definitions sa contra asset. So contra assets, di ba? By the word itself, contra. So anti-asset siya. So meaning a contra asset is part of the asset account, but that is reducing effect. So example sa contra asset account is depreciation, accumulated depreciation, correct? And allowance for doubtful accounts. Now, we also have what we call a junk account. No? Later on, sa slide pro, kanang ano na lang ta, advance na lang ta. Natay a junk account. Now, meaning na po sa junk account, reverse sa contra account. So meaning, if naka a junk account, that is something that is added. So example, ana, kanang premium on bonds, no? Pero later na ana. So 107 na siya natin discuss mga premium on bonds, blah, blah, blah. Sige, let's go to the next slide. I think we already get this one. What are debits and credits? So let's move on. So 5 basic elements of financial statements. So these are assets, liability, equity, revenue, expenses. Now, take note guys, the 5 basic elements are defined. Asa ni sila gi-define guys? Kaning asset, liability, equity, revenue, expenses. Asa ni sila gi-define? Sa inyuhang subject last semester. unsa ang basis nato sa definition sa kaning 3 o 5? Sa conceptual framework. First one is presentation. No? Ang definition sa basic elements is found or are found on the conceptual framework. The conceptual framework, now just a review sa inyo ha guys, mo ni siya ang foundation of all the accounting standards. But it's not in itself a standard. Okay? So assets, liability, equity, revenue, expenses. Okay. So definition, I'm sure you're already familiar with this. So assets, kung ibisaya na itong assets, or i-simplify na itong asset, ibisaya, everything that I own. No? Tanan nga property na ako. Well, tanan nga property na ako plus atong mga property na bisag dili ako pero na ako'y control. Ang pinaka-key na to nga word for asset is not ownership actually guys, no? But the word is control. So assets na atay probable future economic benefit, mao ganing gi-asset nato siya ay naatay expectation nga naatay ma-benefit anak na asset o nga item. So example of assets is or are AR, inventory. So kana sila ang AR na kay probable future economic benefit ana kay namang kay makolekt man na siya nimo, so na kay benefit in the future. Inventory kay mabaligya man na siya nimo, so assets na sila. So if wala siya future economic benefit, how do we recognize it? Ako na lang mo tubag. Kung walay future economic benefit guys, take note of the word future. Ato ni siya i-expense. Because usually, if you're, di ba, example, if mo bayad ta something, kung mabayad ta something, natay credit to cash, right? Natay credit to cash. Ay, so sige, anyway, dagan bitang mo record. So natay credit to cash. Now, ang debit na to would depend. Kung na siya future economic benefit, asset siya. Example, upalit tag inventory, so mag-debit tag inventory, or magbayad to for inventory, mag-debit tag inventory, mag-credit tag cash. Pero kung wala future economic benefit, say for example, nagbayad ta og mga example na wala economic benefit, nagbayad ta og maintenance, pwede ra. Nagbayad ta og kanang ang maintenance ng gray area ng maintenance. Wait lang. O nagbayad tag rent na lang. Gray area po ng rent actually. Sige, just to simplify. Kung nagbayad tag rent for the past month. So nagpagbayad na to sa rent, wala tayong future economic benefit. Kaya ang pagbayad na to, it's payment for a service already rendered to us. So wala na tayo ma-expect a future economic benefit. Pwede na to siya, pero kung nagbayad ta for a rent na kailangan na in advance, so asset pa siya. That is prepaid rent. Ay na ba man tayo ma-expect? Magamit pa man nato siya in the future. Okay, advance payment man siya. So ana ang pasabot sa future economic benefit. Again, assets, we expect probable future economic benefit. If there is no probable future economic benefit, that is not an asset, but usually an expense. And another key term for asset is controlled. Guys, it doesn't, or ownership does not mean nga atuan ng asset. Or meaning, pwede po natin i-word in such a way nga, bisag dili atua or bisag dili kita ang tag-iya, asset gyapon nato siya as long as we control it. Ang example ana ang asset is a right of use asset. Later on, ACC 108 and 109, we will be discussing right of use asset. So right of use asset results from a lease, no? If lease na to, naglista, and kanang leased asset, kita naga-control, so it would mean that is a right of use asset. Asset na to siya, dili na to own, naratay right to use. By a particular entity as a result of past transactions. Liabilities, probable future sacrifice or outflow, no? Sacrifice or outflow of assets na economic benefits, no? Outflow, sacrifice, economic benefits, assets or revenues arising from present obligation of a particular entity to transfer asset or provide services to other entities in the future as a result of past transaction or event. Another one is owner's equity, residual interest of an asset. So owner's equity is what we call, or ang definitions owner's equity, kaning nga term daghan ni nato ma-encounter sa kaning subject. So please familiarize yourself with this word, residual definition. Residual definition. Kana, i-note na lang ninyo kana. I'll share this one to you later. Residual definition. So ang ano na, meaning kung dili siya asset, dili siya liability, owner's equity na siya. Or another term, unsay difference between the asset after deducting liability, that's your equity. Now later on, there are a lot of items or a lot of items in the balance sheet and in the income statement which has a residual definition. Now this one is our accounting equation. Assets minus liabilities is equals to owner's equity, or asset is equals to liabilities plus owner's equity. Depende actually on how you state it. Now, liabilities is equals to assets minus owner's equity. So pwede na siya yung mabali-bali ang equation. Okay. Now, we're okay with elements of financial statements. Now, where can we locate those elements in the financial statements? Now, we have assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. Malocate na nato siya sa balance sheet. Diba ang balance sheet, it is a statement or it is a financial statement wherein it presents the asset of the company, the liability of the company, and the owner's equity of the company at a point in time. Unsay pasabot siya at a point in the time? Point in time simply means, no? Na siya, well, I guess masabta naman siguro no point in time. Now, at a certain date, say for example, di ba, usually mga good guys, ang mga financial statements, no, di ba, I'm sure familiar na ako unsay now sa financial statements, na siya date. Kasi, wait lang, let me try to look for a balance sheet here. Makitaan da ka mag-balance sheet dere. Ayaw magsaba. Kaya na siya pangan. For a while. Kani, muna siyang example sa balance sheet. Kita lang ninyo? Kani. So, Veco, familiar lang mo nga company. So, nakoy balance sheet nila, kay audit, ako man ang auditor ay nila sa una. Sa atong napakasal sa GP, 2019. So, bali ni siya actually. So, trivia, another trivia guys. Not all the time, no, nga, di ba, ang rule natin sa inyo sa una, mag-una ang cash, di ba? Unang ang order sa inyong balance sheet kay from liquid assets to from the most liquid asset to the non-liquid asset. So kani nag-una siya sa PPE. Giuna niya present. Kaya mas importante man ang PPE direct kaysa cash ni company. Ang basis mo gud dato for presentation would be relevance. Kika na. So, muna siyang example sa balance sheet. Now, ang content sa balance sheet, guys, is how much you own at a point in time. So, meaning, ang ownership, ang utang ni company on December 31, 2019, at a point in time, that's the point, these are the point in time, mao ni. So, at this point, mao ning ownership niya, properties, including liability and equity. Sorry. Sige ka, sobrang na ako ka storya. Kalimut yung ginhawa. Joke, bitaw sa hay. Okay, so kana. So how much is the liability of the company at this point? And equity. Now moving on to the income statement or statement of income, ang content ana niya kay revenue and expenses. Now, income statement or revenue and expenses, ang tawag ana nila kay or balance sheet sa tawag ana sa asset, tawag ana sa liability, tawag ana sa equity. Those are what we call permanent accounts. Permanent accounts. Permanent accounts meaning wala sila gina-close at the end of the period. Now, for income statement, we have revenue and we have expenses. Ano eh? Revenue, operating expenses, other income, blah, blah, blah. Now, these items, ano nga mga amounts, guys? This, ganina, di ba, kay point in time. So, meaning, property nila, utang na December 31, 2019. Ano ang income and expenses pertains about performance over a period. Meaning, kaning income nila, mao ni siyang income nila or revenue nila from January 1 to December 31, 2019. So naa siya period. Ang ginabasis, ang ginatanaw nato sa income statement is the performance, no? Not the ownership, not the obligation at a point in time. Ginatanaw nato performance. How much is revenue, how much is expenses from January 1, December 31, or on a certain period. Ano siya? So going back. Okay. So again, balance sheet, permanent accounts ang tawag ana nila. Next, we have anong expenses na ta? Expenses. Outflows, of course. Or other using up of assets or incurrence of liabilities. So expenses will result to the crediting or using up, di ba? Mag-use up pag-asset, credit ni mong asset. Or incurring liabilities, mag-render kag liabilities. Example, anak ka na mga accrued expenses. So debit expenses, credit accrued expenses. No? From delivering product, goods, or other activities that constitute the entity's ongoing major or central operations. So notice that expenses are tied to decreases in assets. Kani guys, muna lang ni ang pinakakailangan ninyong matandaan, ang expenses, pinaka TLDR ani. Too long didn't read expenses, no? Na expenses results from decrease in asset, increase in liability. Take note also that expenses encompasses loss. Meaning, a loss is an expense, no? Ang difference lang sa loss versus the usual expenses that you are familiar with is that loss is extraordinary. Okay. Can anyone here give me an example of a loss? Ang sa mga example sa loss, guys. Expense na siya but extraordinary. Unsa mga example sa account nga loss, guys? Or unsa nga mga transaction that would result to a loss? Sa man? Anyone? O Janice? Joke. Sige, anyone? Nag-chat. So example sa loss, guys, loss on sale of PPE. So di ba, extraordinary na siya because you don't usually sell your PPE. Di ba? Ugma, no, we will be defining a PPE. No? Ang definition ka PPE is that it is a long-term asset nga it is used in the company's operation. Take note of the word use. Ginagamit siya. Example, mga machinery, mga vehicles. Wala na siya ginabaligyan ni company. Ginagamit na sa company. So therefore, PPE na siya. Pero, okay, pero, if ibaligya si PPE, which is an unusual transaction, and lugi ka, ang tawag is loss. So that's an example of a loss. An extraordinary expense. Next, another example is loss on fire, di ba? Dili man ordinary na magkasunog. Pero kung naisunog, na masunog atong mga inventory, tawag loss. Again, take note, loss, expenses encompasses loss. Meaning, all losses are expenses, but not all expenses are losses. Okay? So natin ginatawag po na operating expenses. Kaya ang pagsabot mo ninyo, usually, on expenses, lang siya? Operating expenses. Mga operating expenses are those ordinary expense, no? Or mga usual expense. Like utilities, maintenance, repairs, blah, blah, blah. Revenues. Or income. Actually, income siyang term dapat. Pero pwede naman revenues. So, inflow ni siya. Ganina, expense, outflow, inflow. Dali naman siya, guys. Mag-keyword lang mga So, definition revenue, inflow resulting from increase in asset, decrease in liability. Of course, di ba? Kung magka-increase atong asset, di ba, nagka-benefit pa. Natin benefit na nag-increase atong asset. So, that's revenue. In other ways, or another perspective to look at it is that if magka-decrease atong utang, natin revenue. And another term there na i-familiarize na to dapat is gain. Similarly, gain with loss, or gain is an extraordinary revenue. Example, similarly, ganina kung magbaligya tag PPE, but this time it resulted in naka-benepisyo ta, dili tayo kansi, magka-recognize ta og gain. Okay? Sige. So income statement. So kaning mga items, ganina na ingon ako, makita ni sila sa income statement. No? Formula for income statement or how to compute for the net income, revenue expenses, joke, of course, income statement, revenue minus expenses. Simple lang. So content income statements, revenue expenses for a period of time. Diba niingon ko? Period siya. From January 1 to December 31. That's the usual 1-year period. But of course, you may make an income statement for 1 month, for 3 months, depende kung unsay need ni user. O kinsang mga user? Si investors, si public, si government, usually sila. Now, income or revenues and expenses are also are what we call temporary accounts. Now, can anyone here define what is a temporary accounts? Now, in your own words, dali naman ni siya, temporary accounts. Or when you are in ACC 102, ginaunsa ninyong temporary accounts will be closed, correct? So, gina-close siya sa income summary. Usually, sa equity, di ba? You close your income summary to equity or to retained earnings. For corporation, retained earnings, okay, correct. Temporary accounts are account now that has been closed. Example, ana, or kana na sila mga income, revenue, and expenses. Okay, the accounting equation, kana, assets, okay na tana, dual nature for every action, there is a reaction. Okay, blah, 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 equality must hold. So, maroon na siya ang double entry. So, kung naay debit, naay credit. Yeah, since every time naay debit, naay credit, and both debits and credits are equal, so always, ato ang books are equal. So, accounting equation, assets equals to liabilities plus owner's equity. So, unsay pasabot ani sir? So, if mag-increase tag asset, napod tayo magka-increase pa datong, depende sa actually sa mixture, no? So, if there is an increase in asset, it's either a decrease in another kind of asset or an increase in liability or owner's equity. Okay, unsay example ani sa first example sa increase in asset that would result to an increase in liability. Unsa man? Unsa ang transaction na magka-increase atong asset niya, magka-increase pa atong liability? Sa mga example ana guys. Unsa? Correct, mangutang, no? Mangutang. So, kung mangutang ka, makadawat ka og cash, di ba? Kaya nangutang bitaw ka, so nakadawat ka cash, so nag-increase imong asset, correct. Pero since nangutang man ka, nagkadugang pud imuhang liability. So correct. So kana plus plus. Kanang negative minus asset minus liability unsa na siya? Gibayaran nimo imuhang utang. So nibayad ka sa imong utang, gibuhinan nimo imong cash kay nibayad man ka. Nya since nibayad man ka, imong utang nagka-decrease pod. So mo siyang example sa number 2, negative negative. Now unsa ni siyang example sa increase in one asset but there is a decrease in another asset. Sa example ana, purchase, di ba? Kung mo-purchase ka, unsa nagka-increase? Increase imuhang inventory. Pero since nag-purchase man ka, purchase in cash ha, purchase in cash. Kaya kung mag-purchase, mag-purchase ka in account or na accounts payable, entry nimo a debit to asset which is an increase and a credit to liability which is an increase. So kanay in this case, we have to complete the sentence, purchase, no, in cash. Cash na to itong purchase or cash purchase. So nag-debit ta og inventory, nag-credit ta og cash. So asset man na sila duha, nag-increase ang inventory, nag-decrease ang cash. Correct. Now in this one, and the fourth one, increase in asset, increase in owner's equity. Unsa na itabuan eh? Unsa man? Additional investment, di ba? Additional investment or initial investment. Kung initial investment ta, mag-debit ta og cash, credit ta og capital or equity. Kaning decrease in asset, decrease in equity, unsa man ni siya? Ng mga transaction. Withdrawal, correct. Di ba? Kung mag-withdraw ta, atong equity, mag-debit ta og drawings or withdrawal, credit og cash. Or another term ana, kung i-apply na po siya sa corporation, unsay term sa corporation guys? Dividends. Corporation, walay drawing ang corporation guys. Dividends na siya. dividendo. Sige, later discuss ana. So back to debit and credit. So debit increases asset expenses na-discuss na siya nato. Sige, kamo na lang, hatag ko na ninyo later. Okay na siya. Okay na ni siya. Okay na. Basic accounting equation, stockholders' equity, paid in capital, retained earnings. So stockholders' equity, ang composition ana sa corporation, paid in capital, share capital or mga stocks, retained earnings mo siyang accumulated earnings. Kanang mga combined net income nimo. So ang composition sa imong combined net income, that's revenue minus expenses minus dividends. Ang equivalent sa dividends sa partnership and sa sole proprietorship is withdrawal or drawings. So revenue minus expense, that's your net income minus dividends over how many years, that's your retained earnings balance. So kaning basic accounting equation, this is for corporation. And for ACC 106, 107, for financial accounting and reporting, guys, we are going to be accounting for transaction in the perspective of a corporation. Corporation na tayo, guys. Corporation. Wala na tayo sole proprietorship. Dari nga istorya. So kanang drawings, pwede na siya ninyo malabay nga. So, atong term na karon, retained earnings for the accumulated earnings and paid in capital or share capital for the contributions. Ano the difference? So paid in capital, guys, those are contributions, no? From the owners or from the stockholders. Other than those earned from operations. Now, retained earnings, mo ni siya ang mga additional equity which is recognized through operation, like ang mga accumulated net income. Okay, later on, we'll elaborate that further. Okay. So part 2, let's go to part 2. Accounting cycle. Sige. Pahuwais ako mga 3 minutes. Bali ko 2:45. Sige. Break sa guys. Water break. Hello, sorry. Okay, so let's continue. Accounting cycle. So after completing this part, you should understand the. Okay, so guys, please familiarize yourself with the accounting cycle. Kulang A, wait lang. For a while. So, analyzing, journalizing, posting, preparing the unadjusted trial balance. After we're done with adjusted trial balance, adjusting entries. So, kaning first 5 steps, guys. So, ang tawag nila nga phase, these are what we call the recording phase. No? Kani? Recording phase. Yeah, kaning next, mo na ginatawag na summarizing phase. Financial statements, closing entries, post-closing trial balance, and reversing entries. Okay, another thing that you should be mindful of, common question, which are the optional steps in the accounting cycle. So, unsa nga mga optional steps dire? Ang optional nato is preparing the unadjusted trial balance, preparing the adjusted trial balance, not the adjusting entries. This is required, of course. Pero ang adjusted trial balance, this is optional. So see guys next week lagi guys kay mag face to face na guys karon day sorry wala mo nag ni sa ay na construct niya dre nya again kani optional closing entries is required. SS of course, that's the point. Mo na siyang point nato, mo na siya ang final results of all our entries dere. Mo na siyang pinaka-relevant, the financial statements. Mo na siyang report paano mabawaan ni investor or ni user nga unsay performance nato, pila ang ilang assets, blah blah blah. Post-closing trial balance, this is optional. Reversing entries, this is also optional. So pila itong optional dire? Kani. Baga nag-ugaw-ugaw. Sige, balik ko na ako. Para ma-identify nyo. Again, please connote guys. Please connote. Ang optional na to, optional. Common na siyang question guys ha. Optional, reversing, post-closing TB, optional, adjusted TB, optional, TB, optional. So ana sila upat, muna ang optional. The rest are required. And again, sila recording and kanikay summarizing. Okay. So kinsa ang nagahimo? Ang nagahimo ani nga mga analysis, journalizing, and posting, ang naghihimo ana sila, ginatawagan nila mga bookkeeper. Not necessarily si bookkeeper, CPA, or a graduate of accounting, no? Just someone who has basic knowledge of the debits, the credits, and of the transactions, of course. Kaya mga normal transactions like AR, cash receipts, AP. Kaning mga journalizing posting, these are ongoing throughout the year from January 1 to December 31. Okay, ang role ana si bookkeeper. Next, si accountant. Si accountant usually is a graduate of an accounting degree, either a CPA or a BSA student or a BSA graduate or a BSMA graduate. Ang ginahimo ni accountant, prepares the unadjusted trial balance, prepares the adjusting entry, which is more complex than the usual bookkeeping job. So adjusting entries would require you to have knowledge of
the expense method, the asset method, require you to have knowledge of how to compute depreciation, how to compute interest expense, blah, blah, blah. Preparing financial statements, si accountant ana, preparing the closing entries, post-closing trial balance, and the reversing entries. Okay, so it's not really that relevant. There's a trivia or background on who does what. Okay. So, kaninga slide no talks about recordable events or transaction or events. Now, ang pinaka-basis dun nato or pinaka-baseline dun nato, whether we make an entry no, sa analysis phase ni siya, does it or does a transaction fit into the definition of an element in the financial statements? Ana ra jud na siya. So pinakauna ana, does it meet the definition of an asset, a liability, an equity, revenue, or expense? So if naatay mga transaction nga nasulod ani, recordable na siya. Meaning kung recordable, we will be providing an accounting entry. Is it measurable? Of course, sometimes, yes, pwede siya masulod sa asset, pwede siya masulod sa liability, pwede siya ma-equity, revenue, or expenses, pero estimate lang siya. Dili ta ka-measure. So sometimes, even though it fits into the criteria of the definition, it's not measurable. Ang usual ana is kanang mga provisions, mga contingent assets and contingent liabilities. Now, those assets and liabilities which does not meet the criteria of recognition and or measurement. Relevant, reliable, blah, blah, blah. If so, the transaction or event is captured in the accounting records. Anyway, it's not really that important. Okay, journalize. Kabunataan na. Okay na. Okay. So journalizing or recording a transaction, no? So natay mga ginatawag ng mga accounting records, no? Ari nato ni sila, mao ni siya ang mga database nga ginabutang nato ato mga journal entry or mga basis atong journal entry. So we have source documents or business documents. So examples of the business documents are sales invoices. So unsang ma-record nato sa sales invoices? Sales invoices, example ana, I'm not sure familiar ka mo sa mga sales invoice or kanang mga bills, big bills, pwede para sa mga sales invoice. Kanang mga bills din ginatag sa inyo, mao man na ilang sales invoice. So kana, or if naman negosyo, familiar mo sa sales invoice. So ang basis na ang ma-record nato sa mga sales invoice are possibly it could be an AR if it's a credit sale, or it could be cash if it is a cash sale. And of course, sales invoice man siya. Pinaka-indicative dun ang makita nato there is the sales. No? Sales or revenue from merchandise. Purchase invoices, of course, AP, inventory, a credit to cash. Official receipts, no, kanang mga payments nato, debits and credit memorandum, check stubs and minutes book. So these accounting records are used for step 1. So step 1 nato kay analysis, no? Analyzing the business documents or transaction. Makikita ita. Ang usual mo gud ani guys, kung accountant ta, of course, di ba, nadatay basis atong entry. So ang basis atong entry, kita accountant nato sa opisina, ang basis atong entry makadawat ta og mga documents. Say for example, accountant kag lingkod kag gitagaan ka og sales documents ni sales division. So ikaw as an accountant or si bookkeeper, himuon nimo, tan-awon nimo ang sales invoice. Pag tan-awon mo sa sales invoice, i-record. Say for example, nakadawat og sales invoice, it is a sale through cash or it's a cash sale. So ang i-entry nimo sa libro, a debit to cash, credit to sales. Ana na siya. So muna sila ang mga documents or mga source documents wherein you base your entries. Books of original entry, mga journals. Final entries, ledgers. So ledger, GL, and SL. So regional entries, mo siyang mga debits and credits nimo, journal voucher, journal entry. Books of final entry, mga ledgers are detailed siya for the subsidiary ledger, but more or less these are summary, no? Naano siya sa posting. So ang usually ani sa books of final entry or ledger, ang pinaka ginahimo nato ani sa inyong AC-102 commonly gina-express ni siya ninyo through a T account. Familiar naman kamo sa T account guys, no? Kanang pinayngani. Sample sa cash, natay debit nga 10, natay credit nga 5. So mo na siya ato ang books of final entry. This is a subsidiary ledger. No, a T account could be a subsidiary ledger usually. No, kung manual. Pero usually kung automatic or computerized, generate lang siya. So books of final entry, ledgers, kano ninyo? T account. So T account guys, please familiarize yourself also with this one. Kanang pag T accounts. No, kay very useful ni siya sa financial accounting and reporting. Okay. So kana, please just read na lang. I'm sure you're already familiar with this one. So nagbaro ka 5,000 ba? Pansin na note. Sige. Ba naman anyway. Sige, ako na siya skip. Okay. So journals, special journals, etc. Okay. So again, posting, ari na to sa mga ledgers. So posting. Ledger is a collection of accounts used to keep. And again, sa ACC-102 ninyo, if nag-manual ka mo or nag-worksheet ka mo, usually the general ledger and the subsidiary ledgers are expressed through a T account. So let's have an example. Okay. Okay. Hello, kay Bao na maani. Sa mga basic na kayo na siya. Arita. So I'm going to be sharing. Nakita niyo man akong post ganina, no? Katong discussion, para ng discussion problems. Snippet. Or discussion exercises. No, mga journal entries. Ari na to sa adjusting. Okay. Maklaro ba? Dali lang. Ano ba? Unpin unpin taskbar. View. Formula bar. Headings. High table na. Okay, wala, di ko nag-share of screen. Sorry. Ayan. Ako nag-expect nga mag-line up. So, lang ha. Okay. Anyway, fine. Sige. Maklaro lang. So, I'll give you 5 minutes to read this one. So please read it first before we answer. And while we're answering, now we will be discussing the adjusting cycle, because this one pertains to adjustments. So 5 minutes to read this one and we'll answer together. Okay? So I'll discuss 305. Okay, so let's read and answer. So the following trial balance was taken from the books of Virgo Corporation on December 31, 2020. So TB na ni siya, guys. So TB, we are in already in topic 2 or part 2, which is the summarization, no, of the accounts or of the accounting information. So na sa point nga maghimo na ta og trial ba dili pa day. Nabata sa recording ba ay. Nabata sa TB, no, na naghimo pa tag TB. Then after TB, maghimo tag adjustments. After adjustment, na tay adjusted trial balance. After sa adjusted trial balance, FS, nabatay closing. Closing entries and adjustment and closing entries, FS, and reversing entries. Okay. Okay. So cash 24, debit, AR 80, notes 14, allowance for doubtful accounts on their accounts receivable, inventory, insurance, furnitures and furniture and equipment, accumulated depreciation on the furniture and equipment, accounts payable, common stock, retained earnings, sales, cost of goods sold, salaries, and rent. Okay. Now, this is the unadjusted trial balance. Now, what we have to consider are the following: A to F, mga potential adjustments. Okay. Now, guys, when you are going to be dealing with accounts, no, say for example, in real life, wala mo godingani. Wala A to F. So, ginahimo nimo, you do an expectation. No, you analyze each account. Na unsa nga mga accounts diri kailangan adjustment. So, kaning AR, kailangan nato ni siya i-adjust kay naapay mga allowance, or kailangan nato ni siya adjust kay need nato siya dungagan or buhinan og allowance for doubtful accounts. Note receivable, sometimes there is an recognized interest income, no, kay notes receivable, interest bearing man siya usually. So natin interest income nga ma-recognize. Unexpired insurance, of course, we have to account for the expired portion. Of course, for furniture and equipment, kailangan ta mag-record of depreciation. What else? Rent. So for rent and salaries, no, we may recognize accrued salaries, no, those salaries which are recognized as expenses but not yet paid. And rent expenses, no, we may recognize either accrued rent expense, which is a liability, or a prepaid rent, which is an asset, depending on the situation. So those are accounts which potentially would result in an adjustment. So even though without A to F, no, we know unsa nga mga accounts ang kailangan nato i-adjust. Okay, let's start with letter A. Insurance expired during the year is 4,000. Okay. Sige guys, analyze with me. Nag-expire daw ang insurance 4,000. Okay. Now, unexpired, ang nasa tong libro, unexpired 9/6. So in order for us to recognize the 4,000 expired portion of the unexpired 9/6, what will be our adjusting entry? A debit to what? Ano sa itong i-debit? Debit insurance expense, correct. Because if you have noticed, we have not yet recognized insurance expense. Now, kailangan na ta mag-recognize of insurance expense kay naanay portion sa kaning 9/6 nga na-expired. So, debit insurance expense for 4,000. Next, what will be our credit? Credit, let's be consistent. Let's use unexpired insurance. But correct, that's prepaid insurance. Or ako na nagbutang dali prepaid para di mo ma-confuse insurance. No? Kaya sometimes tayo magka-confuse mo anong laylay ang term ginagamit. Depende lang na sa naghatag sa material. Kana. Correct. So this is our adjusting entry. So what would happen? So question, how much is the balance of prepaid insurance as of year-end? Pila naman lang itong prepaid insurance as a year-end? Pila na lang guys? Ang unexpired insurance? 5,600. Correct. Very good. Very good. So out of the 9,600 total, sa total na to nga 9,600, 4,000 has expired, meaning expense na siya, and 5,600 is still outstanding, meaning asset pa siya. Ay napaman tayo future benefit ana, which is the future insurance na provide. Letter B, estimated bad debts 1% of gross sales. Now let's not complicate this one and compute for the 1% of 620, how much? That's 6,200. So what's our entry? What's our debit here for letter B for estimated bad debts? That is bad debt expense. Amounting to 6,200. What's our credit, guys? Credit to what? Allowance for BA lang nabutang isa lang para lumbo. Doubtful accounts. Correct. Very good. Now, another question. How much is the balance of our allowance for doubtful accounts as of December 31, 2020? Dako. How much? 6,2 plus 3,6? 9,8. Correct, no? 6,2 kani plus 3,6 nga balance na nga daan. Okay, another question which we will be discussing later. What is the NRV or what is the net realizable value of accounts receivable? Familiar naman ang term, net realizable value. That is the gross amount of accounts receivable minus the balance of the allowance for doubtful accounts. How much? That should be what? That should be, no, 80 minus 70, pila? 71, 200 or 70, 200? 6 to 70. Joke, wait lang. NRV guys, kanina lang. NRV is AR gross, which is 80. Ay, di sa ko sure kay. Minus allowance na. Talaga na itong allowance. That's 3,600 plus 6,200. 70, 200. Na-short na sobra tag 1K. 70, 200. So this, ang tawag ani sa 70, 200 guys. Now later, discuss mo din natin when we are going to be talking about AR, tawag ani is NRV or what we call net realizable value. Okay. Letter C, depreciation on furniture and equipment, 12% per year. Okay. So what is 12% or how much is our depreciation this year? Tanawa itong mga accounts, unsang mga accounts nga pwede ma-depreciate diya, multiply 12%. How much? $30,000, no? So to record that, what's our debit here? What's our debit? To adjust. Debit, depreciation, expense, credit accumulated, depreciation. 30. Okay. So letter D. Interest at 8% is receivable. So what do we mean if interest at 8% is receivable? Is this interest expense or interest income? Interest income, no? So kung natay additional interest receivable, of course, there is a debit to interest receivable, credit to interest income. How much? Asa unsa man nga account diri ang magka-incur og interest? Notes receivable. So 14 multiplied by 8% for one full year, no? So that is interest receivable. $120. $120. Okay. Now, letter E. I joke na po. Interest income. Letter E. Rent paid in advance at December 31, 10,800. Asa man ta magkuha ana, guys? So, and what's our accounting entry? Na daw tayo rent paid in advance. 10,800. So what's our entry? Later on, we'll discuss about asset method, expense method, revenue and liability method after this one. Correct, no? Debit prepaid rent, how much? 10K, no? Credit what? Credit what? Credit rent expense, correct. So prepaid rent, 10K. See, at least kay bawo mo kung ano, happy ko nga kay bawo mo sa sa kanang pasikot-sikot sa kali. Because sometimes na mga higher years na nga di pa familiar sa kanang mga pasikot-sikot sa mga ingani nga mga accounts. Okay. Last, accrued salaries, 11.6. Similar na gyapon, magkuha ta sa salaries expense. Ang gihimo nato dire is that when we when we recognize salaries, na part of the salaries expense, 11.6 of that has not yet been paid. Okay, so how do we adjust? Oh no, sorry. Additional siya, no? Additional salaries, no? Kay accrued salaries man. So, yeah, wrong akong explanation. So accrued salaries, actually, aning 100,000 nga accrued salaries, salaries expense, dungaga na to og 11.6. So ako na lang mag-entry. So debit, salaries expense, no? Kay napatay kailangan i-accrue. Take note, tanawa itong balance sheet, guys. Tanawa itong balance sheet, itong mga asset, itong balance sheet accounts. Wala tay salaries payable, di ba? Di ba wala tay salaries payable? So therefore, kaning accrued salaries ng 11.6, we know that it is not yet been recorded because the fact na accounts payable lang ang nabutang nga liability, walay salaries payable. So magdungad ta, salaries expense, 11.6. And credit salaries payable to record the accrued salaries or accrued salaries payable or accrued salaries expense. Okay. So we're done with A to F. Let's go to the closing entries. So unsa nga accounts gani guys ang gina-close? Mga what? Mga temporary. Unsa sa letter A?
Sir, E, sir, kay 10-8.
Okay, 10-8 din, no? 10 na ako nabutang. Oh. Okay. So, first, how do we close? Sige. Unsa to gina-close kanet? Mga temporary accounts. Unsa mga temporary accounts na to dire? Mga sales, mga cost of sales, and expenses. Let's start first with sales. How do we close sales? What's our entry to close sales? Debit what? Sales and income. Sales and interest income. Unahon sa nato mga income. So natay sales dire, natay interest income dire. So i-close na nato ning duha. So what's our debit to close sales and interest income? What's our debit? Correct. Debit sales, not debit income summary. Debit sales, kaya di ba? Credit si sales. To close out sales or to zero out sales, kailangan mo siya i-debit. No? Sales debit, 620,000. So to close also, interest income, debit pod. 1120. Asa man ta mag-credit guys? Unsa atong i-credit here? Credit income summary. Very good. Six to 120. Okay. Next, we have to close the expenses. Asa man nato mga expenses day? Ako ilatag. Okay. So of course, to close out expenses, we have to credit the expenses, debit, income, summary. So debit income summary, wala pa tayo ba kung pila itong income summary. Pero let's ilatag na itong expenses na to. First na itong expense, cost of goods sold, 262. Next is salaries expense. Pila itong salaries expense? Pila man? That is 111,600. Next, rent expense. Ito na to rent expense. Pila itong rent expense? 25,600 natin adjustment. 10,800. How much is the rent expense na itong i-close dire? Pila? Pila man natong i-close ng rent expense, guys? Pila naman natong balance, atong adjusted balance sa rent expense? Nagsugod tag 25,600, pero natin adjustment, pila na lang? Pila na lang natin i-close? Diba? Pila na lang, guys? 14,800. Paano siya natin ikuha? 14,000, di ba nagsugod tag 25,600, unadjusted na to? Natay adjustment nga 10,800. Pila na lang? 14,800. So rent expense 14,800. Next is insurance, no? Insurance expense, natay adjustment. So let's put here. Sunod na lang natin tanan. Pila to siya? 4,000. Next is bad debts. budget expense. $6,200. Next is depreciation expense. $30,000. Interest, manata, rent, manata, salaries, manata. Okay. So how much is the debit to income summary, guys? How much? Bali na. Dapat din ako dito putang. Sorry. Pila? Tala nga. Pila, guys? Pila man itong i-debit sa income summary? $1,116, $262, $36,2, $14,800, $462. Pila? $428,600. Balance ba? Balancing figure naman siya, guys, actually. Balance ba? $428,600, $428,600. Okay. With that, guys, another question. How much is the net income? Okay lang. Ano dyan na siya basta mag-calculate. How much is our net income, guys? How much is the net income? Nag-mute ako, guys. Okay. O, pila man natin. I see correct answers already. Correct, no? That is 192,520. Actually, ang income summary na to, ang balance ating income summary, credit minus debit, that will be our net income. So resulta na, debit income summary to close income summary, if net income debit, that is 192, pila ganito? 192,520. Asa man nato siya i-close nga account diri, guys? Sa kaninga asa nato siya i-close? Ang income summary, asa diri i-close nga account? Di ba ang income summary i-close nato siya sa permanent account? Asa nato siya ibutang? Na Virgo Capital account diha? Wala man, di ba? Sa T account, sa balance, sa trial balance na Virgo Capital diha? Asa man? Asa na ito i-close? Asa na ito i-close? Pangita. Again, guys, common stock, those are contributions. contributions, dili siya part sa operation. Retained earnings. Ala, kinsa nag-corporation accounting ninyo. Again guys, retained earnings. Retained earnings is the account that we are going to be closing it. So, ang retained earnings, no, ano na siya? Pag-define ang retained earnings, so, muna siyang account sa mga corporation, dira na siya ginabutang ang mga items sa equity related to operations or income. So tanang income ni corporation ara ibutang sa retained earnings. Tanang losses ni corporation ara ibutang sa retained earnings. Now retained earnings, ang other term sa retained earnings is accumulated earnings. Diba? Accumulated earnings meaning by the term itself, no? Kaning account dili nato siya gina-accumulate ang earnings or income. So tanang net income dira ginabutang sa retained earnings. Na ang gamit ana sa retained earnings other than the account used for net income is this is the account or the source account for dividend distributions. So kung maghatag kag dividendo or kung similar term ana is for sole proprietorship which is withdrawal, so ara nimo siya ginakuha. So di gina-close nato ni siya sa ang income summary or ang net income nato gina-close nato siya sa retained earnings. So this is, I'll send this one later. So mo ni siya pag-answer sa first straight problems nato. So any questions? Let's just go directly to the problems. I'm pretty sure that you already know some concepts. Okay, so any questions? So that we can move on to the next. You may type or, sir, pwede ba ma-send that? Oh, sure. No problem. Actually, that's, masya kong humuon. You're welcome. Sige. Let's just slide. Ato sa slides. We'll wrap up the slides now. We'll do it quickly. And let's go to the problems. Actually, ang ano naman ang dyan sa slides kay. Okay. Sa kanina portion, muna siya itong unadjusted TB. So, ang important nato diri guys nga katunan for the trial balance, di ba? When we do trial balance, we have, same sa katong gipakita atong problem ganina, di ba naggilatag ang accounts from cash until the expenses, naga-debits, naga-credits. Now, if I'm going to be showing to you again, that's the sample problem, di ba na-notice ninyo nga the debit is equal to the credit. So mo siyang point sa trial balance. The debit equals the credit. Now there are things that so ang ano ni sa trial balance is it is a tool wherein we can check the correctness of our entries. Because if there are times wherein dili balance, so natin na-discover or na-error na na-discover through making trial balance. Now with that, no, we go to, na example, na the next. We go to the errors revealed by trial balance. Again, ang gamit sa trial balance, arita, so by definition, trial balance simply means the listing of all accounts in their respective balances. Ani. Listing of all accounts in their balances. Balance. So debits should always equal to credits. Kita ninyo, debits is equal to credits. That's the point of the double entry system. every account in the general ledger will have either a debit or credit or a zero balance. So we cannot assume that all transactions and events have been recorded and posted. Correct. No, mo ni siya ang fourth bullet point, no? Cannot assume that all transaction and events have been recorded and posted, no? These are errors, no, which cannot be detected by a trial balance. Because if there is a transaction na wala na record, ang si trial balance lang yapon siya. Kaya bisag wala na record, wala tayo debit, wala tayo credit. So ang effect ana zero. So pag latag ng mga trial balance gyapon ang mga accounts. So therefore, dili na to ma-record, dili na to ma-detect ni siya klase nga error. Cannot assume that the accounts or amounts are correct, and again, another thing to remember about trial balance, it is an optional step in the accounting cycle. Okay, sige. So going back, errors revealed by the trial balance. So errors of posting, kaning mga ma-reveal daw, kanang ma-detect sa trial balance. Error of posting to the same side of the double entry. So unsa ni siya ma-effect ani kung mag-post ka sa the same side. Example, kung maka-receive ka og cash to your AR, nga gidebit nimo ang cash, gidebit po nimong AR, so what will happen to our trial balance? What will happen to our trial balance if mag-double ta og debit, nya wala ta magi-credit? Ma-disbalance, di ba? Say for example, kung naka-receive tag cash, atong gidebit, atong gi-entry, nag-debit tag cash, nag-debit po tag AR, at example 1,000, wala tayo may get credit. Paglatag nato sa trial balance, most likely atong trial balance magkasubra og 1,000. Magkasubra og 1,000, no? So kung wala man tayo debit, so na defeat ang purpose ka double entry. Kaya entry lang pag debit, wala tayo may get credit. In double entry, if there is a debit, there is at least a credit. Number 2 is errors of omission of one side of a double entry. Kung sa'yo pasabot ani. So say for example, same transaction gyapon. Number 2 ni siya, nag-debit ta og cash, nag-credit tag AR. However, upon our entry, errors of omission ha, ang gibutangan ng natog amounts kay ang cash lang. Ang AR, na-omit na to. Wala na to na entry. So nag-debit lang tag cash, 1,000, niya nag-credit tag AR, pero walay amount, so blank. So ang effect ana, nagkasubra taog debit, nasubra tong debit, or no, dili sobrang debit, nagkakulang taog credit. That's the correct term, sorry. Kulang ang credit, kaya wala na to na post. So mauna na siya. Errors of omission. I hope you understand what omission means, meaning na-omit or nakaligtaan. Wala na butangan. So nag-debit lang ta, wala ta na credit, or nag-credit ta, wala ta may na debit. So ma-detect na siya sa trial balance, kaya dili man mag-balance ang table. Number 3 is errors of posting where digits of number are reversed on one side of a double entry. Ana. So ang illustration ani sa number 3 is that ang example ang cash kay 9 dali lang. Erase na ko. So same lang yapon nga entry, but in this case ang amount nato kay 911. Pero ang mo siya tong debit. Correct ning 911. Pero ang na-credit nato sa AR kay 191 lang. Nalibat ta. Nagkabali ang digits. So kani, it would result to the trial balance not being equal because the debit and the credit is not equal. So ano siyang tawag na errors of posting where digits of numbers are reversed on one side of a double entry. Next is errors of original entry. So errors of original entry, same lang gapon ni siya sa kani. Sayop imong original entry. So either 1, 2, or 3. Meaning either na umit ka, nasayop ka, simuhang initial niya, na double nimo ang imong debits. So number 4 is this number of 1, 2, 3. Number 3 is number 5 is errors of adding up. So say pasabot ani errors of adding up. Say for example na kay sales. Wait lang. Na kay sales niya partly cash, partly AR. Again, na kay sales na partly cash, partly AR. So errors of adding up, debit cash, debit AR, credit sales. So ang sales ni mga ang cash ni mga nadawat kay 5,000, niya ang AR ni mga na-recognize kay 5,000. Pero ang pag-add up nimo sa duwa, sampulan ni siya exage na kayo ni. Pag credit nimo sa sales 9,000 lang. So errors of adding up, wala nimo na add up tarong ang debits nimo, sayop imong credit. So muna siya ang errors of adding up. So those things can be detected by the trial balance. Why? Because any of these entries would result to the trial balance not being balanced, dili balancing. So those are things nga ma-detect nimo. Again, makabawra ka nga sayop ang trial balance kay ang trial balance dili balance or dili equal imong debits imong credits. And if there are errors revealed by the trial balance, there are also errors not revealed by the trial balance. Okay, na ba example? Kamo na lang balance examples ay. Nag-example lang ako ganina. Errors not revealed by the trial balance. First one, errors of omission on both sides of the double entry. So errors of omission of both sides of the double entry. So example ana kay accounting event nga wala nimo gi-entry. So nag-no entry ka. Kung nag-no entry ka nga kailangan nimo mag-entry, sayop imong accounts kay wala man ka nag-entry. However, dili siya ma-detect sa trial balance kay since wala man ka gi-entry, ang trial balance mo unsa man balance gihapon. So, dili nimo mabantayan through the trial balance. Or another example of that is nag-debit ka og cash, nag-credit ka og AR, na omit nimo ang amounts 00. So sayop siya kay wala nimo gibutangan amounts pero balance ang gyapon imong TB kay 00 man sila. So equal lang gyapon ang debits, equal imong credits pero sayop imong entry. Kana that's errors of omission. Another is errors of posting on both sides of double entry with the same amount. Okay. Same lang yapon, sayop imong entries, pero same ang amounts. So ang say example, say for example, kung nakay interest income na dapat i-recognize. No? Nakay interest income. So ang should be nimo nga entry kay say for example 10,000 dapat. So debit interest receivable, credit interest income. Mo siya should be. However, ang gihimo nimo instead nga mag-record kag interest income, nag-record ka og interest expense. So gi-entry nimo debit interest receivable, credit interest expense 10,000. Sayop niya siya nga entry kay supposedly interest income imo credit. However, pag tan-aw nimo sa trial balance naman gyapon imong credit ug debit kinama kay debit na kay credit. So wala nimo siya na detect. However, it is still an error. So this is an example of an error which cannot be detected by the trial balance. Number 3, errors of reverse posting in the double entry. So example you have collected an accounts receivable. Naka-collect ka og accounts receivable. Ang should be entry if maka-collect ka accounts receivable kung di ba collection, maka-collect ka dawat ka og cash, sample 10,000. credit ka og AR. Mo na siyang should be. However, na-reverse nimo ang post. Imong gi-entry na nimo instead nga debit ka og cash credit AR 10,000 ang gihimo nimo, mag-debit ka og AR, credit ka og cash 10,000. So pag tanaw nimo sa TV, balance lang mangyapon siya. Di ba? Kay naman kay debit, naman kay credit. However, sayop siya kay nabali nimo ang imuhang double entry. Meaning imo instead nga gi-debit nimo, imo siyang gi-credit, instead nga gi-credit nimo, imo siyang gi-debit. So that is another example of an error not detected by the trial balance. Okay, posting in the wrong account, okay, na same lang mangyapon as sa omission or posting on both sides. Errors of accounting principle, example ani ka ng mga errors of accounting principle like kung ang accounting policy ninyo is the depreciation is based on straight line pero another type of depreciation gyapon nga method imong gigamit, so safe imong tama imong entry balance ang gyapon ang imong debits and credits. So ever sayop siya kay sayop man imong pag-apply sa imong accounting principle. Okay, so lastly is compensating errors. Okay, sige, example of the last two kani. So errors of accounting principle kani. Errors of accounting principle. So example, posting of 550 pesos of maintenance expense to machinery fixed asset. So debit machinery 550, credit cash 550. So later on sa tong Phil 124, we will be learning why this is wrong. So well, it could be right no nga pwede ka maka-debit machinery. However, there is a qualification. So usually maintenance expense, especially this measly amount of 550 pesos, dili siya material, usually is debited to expense. However, di-debit niya to machinery. Dili siya ma-detect, di ba? Sa trial balance. Kaya makita naman sa trial balance, na kay debit, na kay credit, balance ng yapon, pero sayop ang pag-account, dapat instead nga machinery dire, ang i-debit dapat mo maintenance expense. Ano siya? Errors of accounting principle. Yan, lastly, compensating errors. So compensating errors meaning nagka-error kag 500 pero nakakagi-entry nga isa nga na-compensate lang. So nakakay sobra pag 500 gani na line entry. Okay, example, if one account in the ledger is debited with 500 less and another account in the ledger is credited 500 less. So nag-debit ka 500 less and nag-credit ka 500 less. This 500 nga debit and this 500 nga credit, they offset each other or na-compensate nila ang pagkakulang. So it would result na mag-cancel out each other. So that is an example of a compensating error, no? That is, one error is neutralized by similar error on the opposite side. So please guys, another thing that you should familiarize and memorize, especially or not necessarily memorize. Now, masabtan naman ko siya. What are the errors revealed by a trial balance and what are errors not revealed by the trial balance? So sa kaninga portion. Okay na taane, adjusting entries. Okay na taane. Okay. Sige. Let's have another example sa katong discussion slides na to. Again, I'll be giving you another 5 minutes this time to read out the problem and we'll answer. Okay. So, temporary lang siya guys na na next week mag-face to face ta. Medyo siya, medyo lisod siya karon. Okay, please here. 5 minutes to read and we'll answer. I'll just post this one in the classroom. And also please check the classroom na activity yung gibutan dito. That's 50 items for tomorrow and we'll be discussing it tomorrow. Also, another thing, by the way, activities, the next activities, we will be checking it in the afternoon. But tomorrow's activity, since it will be online, automatically, if you have submitted, or if na-complete nimo, I'll give everyone a perfect score. Okay? So naroon sa classroom guys na tanawan ng activity. DIY, do it yourself. DIY. Okay, let's start. Sige. I'll read out the problem. No, this is related to the one that we have discussed just a while ago. Before. So ano nga problem, no? Obviously, we can say that there are errors nga na-detect sa trial balance, di ba? Kaya na-discover na to na ang total debit sa atong TB is 1,185,903. However, the total credits is only 883,469. So let's start no in answering this one. Sorry ta. Unadjusted balances. Ano siya paggamit? Thanks. So unadjusted balances. So debits, credits, debit credit. How much is the unadjusted debit? Is 1185,903. Atong credit kay 883,469. Okay, now let's go over the following transaction. Of course, this is an example of errors which are detected by a trial balance. Letter A, the credit posting for a purchase of inventory on account amounting to 135,616 was omitted. So kani daw nag-purchase ng inventory on account, no? So what's our original entry here? Kung nag-purchase ng inventory on account, what's our entry? Debit what? Debit inventory credit? What? Credit what? Purchase on account. Accounts payable. No? Kaya on account man, no? Dili siya cash. However, sa kaning nga entry, na-omit daw nato ang credit. Meaning, unsa man, wala ta naka-credit og accounts payable. So dire, no, na magdungag ta og accounts payable amounting to 135,616. Sabtan ra? So na-omit ta. So dungagan nato atong credit. Ano mabalance nato siya sa debit. So let's go to letter B. The balance of office supplies amounting to 56,788 was listed on the trial balance as 65,788. Unsay tawagan nga error? Unsay term na to ganina? Dali lang. Kalimutan ko. Dali lang ha. So ano mataas yung ano niya. Errors of postings where digits of numbers are reversed on one side of a double entry. So ang other term ani guys, ang short version ani is tama ba ko? Transposition error man ata ni or transplacement. For a while ako sa i-search ha. Transplacement error. Ako rin make sure ha, kay na transposition error and na ay transplacement error. Okay, gets. Okay. Correct. Transposition error. Again guys, just to kaya ang common mo good guys, if ever na ay mga theory questions, ang common nga mo gawas, what kind of error na ma-detect sa trial balance? Ang ma-detect sa trial balance is a transposition error. ng definition sa transposition error, kani, errors of posting where digits of numbers are reversed on one side of a double entry. So kani, so instead nga 56,788 ang gi-entry, no? Ang gi-entry kay 65,788. So unsay result ana? Unsay result? What would happen? How much is the difference na lang for now? Ilang difference guys? 9,000. So instead nga 56, nag-overstate, correct? Na-overstate atong office supplies by 9,000. And how do we correct the overstatement of the 9,000? So what do? We deduct 9,000 from our debits. Take note, ang composition sa atong debit is 1,185,903 includes the 9,000 overstatement. So to adjust over inventory supplies, we deduct 9,000 from 1,185. Okay. Letter C. Again, tawag ana transposition error. A debit posting to accounts payable of 155 was debited to accounts receivable instead. Okay. So unsay effect ane sa letter C? First of all, ang letter C ma-detect ba sa trial balance? Bisa tong dili, correct. Dili siya ma-detect. Because even though sayop atong posting, atong debit o ang credit resulting from letter C transaction would still be equal. However, correct, ma-neutralize lang. However, since na-detect na to siya, no, we have to correct it. So what happens to our debits? Unsa atong debit sa kaning nga entry? Na overstate or na understate? Sa kaning entry, na overstate siya or na understate? Sa kanang debits, na overstate siya or na understate? Instead nga i-credit nato siya sa i-debit nato siya sa accounts payable, meaning magbuhin ta sa atong accounts payable which is a credit, nagdungag tag AR. Under over, correct, overstate, no? So overstated AR and AP. Actually atong debits and credit na overstate. Na overstate si AR kay instead nga buhinan nato ang AP, nagdungag tag AR. Nya si AP na overstate sad kay instead nga buhinan nato siya, wala lang. Di ba? So himuon nato sa tong debit o sa tong credit, minusan nato og 115, 155, 987 ang debit og ang credit. So in effect, again, tama tong yung giingon, balance ang gyapon siya. However, ang totals nato sayo. So we have to take out, however, the two corrections would neutralize each other. Okay, let's go to letter D. The accumulated depreciation of 78,909 was listed in the debit column of the trial balance. Uy, nasayop ang ato ang pagbutang sa accumulated depreciation. Ang tawag naman po daan sa letter D, guys, is transplacement error. So tandaan niyo kung ano. So meaning, ang sayop atong pag-place or na error sa atong pag-place. Di ba? Unsa ang usual balance accumulated depreciation? Is it a debit or is it a credit? Credit, correct. However, sa paglatag na to, paglatag taog trial balance, instead nga gibutang nato sa credit ang accumulated depreciation, nalibat ta, ato gibutang sa debit. So dapat i-transfer na to siya from debits to credit. So what do we do? To transfer, di na lang ibutang ha. To transfer, buhina na to atong debits. Isayop man siya, dili mo siya dapat debit, di ba? Buhina na to, 78,909. Dungaga na to og 78,909. Dili man siya dapat, di ba? Any question on this one? Buhina na to, kay nasayop siya, gidungag kaning letter D na part na ni siya sa 1185. Pero di dapat, sutang pangon. Kaning 78,909, dapat siya idungag dire. Kay, dapat man siya credit. So minus na dire, plus ta dire. Lastly, debit posting to salaries expense amounting to 32,513 was debited to transportation expense. So how do we correct this one? Salaries expense amounting to unsa ni siya ang salaries expense? Ang name ra correct, no? Tama. So actually no effect lang siya. So kung ganahan mo magbutang jud sa letter E to sa letter E, salaries and transpo. Ang salaries, kay sayop man siya, at tama siya, dungaga na ito og 32,513. Ang transpo, pihin na ito og 32,513. So effectively, there would have a zero effect. No? Zero iyang effect. Okay. So, malalaman na natin kung tama ang ginawa natin. So, total debits and total credits. So, I'm just going to be using the sum formula here. So, dapat mag-balance na siya. Tama ba? 942,007. So, that is how you correct, no? A trial balance which is not balanced. Okay? Okay. So, let's go to the last problem before we wrap this topic. Okay, so last problem, and we'll go over the theory questions. The September 30 trial balance of Cancer Corporation shows the following information. The requirement is, in and after closing trial balance prepared on September 30, the total of the credit column will be. Okay. Sige. I'll give you 5 minutes to answer it yourself, and we'll discuss. Take note of the term after closing trial balance. I'll just put here, after closing trial balance is what we call our post-closing trial balance. So post-closing trial balance, guys, meaning after closing the income statement accounts. So dapat paghimo na to, maghimo ta og post-closing trial balance, wala na income statement accounts. Muna siyang difference. Unadjusted trial balance contains permanent accounts, mixed accounts, and temporary accounts. Adjusted trial balance contains temporary accounts and permanent accounts. Now, for post-closing trial balance contains only permanent accounts. I'm just gonna put the summary here. Summary. So, unadjusted TB. So 415, let's answer together. Okay. So again guys, now post-closing trial balance atong himo. Na record nga adjustments for depreciation. And after we do the adjustments, we make or we close the temporary accounts to equity or to income summary. Okay? So this is ano ni siya? Sole proprietorship, 'di ba? Kay na siya owners, na siya drawings account and na siya owner's equity account. Dili siya retained earnings and dili siya share capital. Okay, so let's go. So again, first, let's do adjustments. Adjusting entry, depreciation expense of 351 is not yet recorded. So debit, depreciation expense, 351. Accumulated depreciation. Credit, accumulated depreciation. $51. Another one is adjusting. Another thing that we have to do is make closing entries. Now, to make closing entries, asama natin first close, sales. Isahon ko na lang ka-entry guys ha. Sales, 6 to 40. Next is, wala na. So let's credit at depreciation expense kay na naman tayo amount dire. Nya, unsa pa itong mga expense accounts dire? AP, AR, depreciation, advertising. How much? 195. Other expenses. So muna na itong mga expense accounts. So i-close na to ni siya sa ato ang equity as well as the drawings. No, ako na lang po i-close ang drawings. Owner's drawings. Now, this is a debit account, di ba? Drawings. So gina-close pa po ni siya. Ang other expenses is 2,470. So di na ako siya ba dapat butang sa income summary. Later na. Okay, income summary. Okay, masayop niya. So, income summary na to kay 3224. I-compute sa mga amounts guys para makaapas mo sa closing. Next is closing of the income summary to equity. In closing of the drawings account to the owner's equity account. To 730. Okay, so unsa ko ni siya? Expand ang kanina lang side by side. Okay, so kani just take a look and compare para makaapas mo sa closing entries and the adjusting entries, and after that we will be making the post-closing TB. So please, I'll give you 2 minutes to digest. The heck? Okay, so all right. So let's I'm going to be sige, once we're done, so let's go to since we're going to be making a post-closing trial balance, let us get first, okay. So what is the balance of the owner's equity after adjustments? Pila na lang itong owner's equity, guys? After everything, pila man? Kamu na. After the adjusting entries, after the closing entries, what is our owner's equity? Or after the closing entries, what is the balance of our OE? How much? Any other amounts? It's not 11. Oh, it's 14. It's 14,794. Correct si Tommy. 14,794. So pag compute na to ani, diba? To compute this one, we'll start first with our balance, diba? Unadjusted balance, which is 14,300. Magdungag ta sa tong net income nga 3,224. Nya mag-minus ta sa tuang drawings nga 2,730. And that would result to a balance of, it's going to be summing it, 14,794. Now let's go to the requirement. So requirement, post-closing trial balance. So post-closing trial balance, of course, I'm gonna put here a debit. I'm gonna put here credit, and isa-isa ho na itong accounts. Let's start first by liquidity. So let's start first with cash. Cash, of course, has a debit balance, 3,770. After that is accounts receivable, AR, of course, another debit balance of 4,030. Next is equipment. So wala natin adjustments equipment. Pila man? 21,060. Another one is allowance or accumulated depreciation. How much is our accumulated depreciation balance naman, guys? Going by this amount, going by the adjustments and the original balance. How much is the updated balance of the AD? 10,881. Credit siya, di ba? So, accounts payable. $185. And lastly, owner's equity. 14,794. Okay. So, let's see if tama itong ang pag-answer, kung mabalance pa siya. We'll use the sum formula. Balance. So, tama ta. So, any question on this one? This is the last problem. Any questions? Okay, mag-end na lang ta. I'm just going to be giving you the answers for. All right. Okay. So I'm just going to be giving you the answers for the multiple choice theory questions. This is 13 items for a while. Sige. Nice. ano na lang guys, panote na lang ko guys, panote na lang ko, isulat na lang ninyo. Yes, post na ko. Panote na lang po sa answer keys for the multiple choice question. 13 items in total for the discussion sa 13 items. Number 1, letter C. Number 2, letter A. Number 3, letter E. Number 4, letter C. Number 5, letter B. Number 6, letter B. Number 7, D. Number 8, D. Number 9, C. 10, D. 11, D. 14, at 12, sorry. C. Anong 14 ako kita now? 13, D. So, do you want me to repeat or okay na?
Pwede repeat, sir.
From what,
Number 10 po.
Okay, 10D, 11D, 12C, 13D. So, DD, CD. 10 to 13, DD, CD. Okay, napa or ano? Sige, ako na lang i-type like for a while. So, wait lang. CA 4C 5B 6B 7D 8D 9C 10D 11B 13C 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Tara! CA, EC, PP, Yes. DIY, I'll give you tomorrow to answer. Then you may post it anytime tomorrow or wait, no. Sige. Tagahanda ka mo og time until the end of the week to finish. I know. Morning lang kay we will be discussing the DIY tomorrow afternoon. So maybe siguro we can start a little bit later, maybe 2 p.m. so that you will have more time to study and answer. And again, guys, I'm going to be encouraging everyone to do it by in a group, group study mo. But I hope ang ano lang na nato, and again, bonus na siya ang first. Now, as long as there is submission, you're good. Just for this first one, basta ano lang, just make sure nga nakasabot mo sa inyong answer or kabaw mo nga nung yan inyong answer. If dili kansin ha, you ask. Okay? So that's the first activity for tomorrow, the DIY. Most ato is theory questions. I think 40 theory question, 10 problems. Yeah. So again, no points pressure. No, ang focus ninyo sa kaning activity, activity 1 is to learn. Or I think kabaw naman mo just to refresh. Okay? So I'll post this one tonight. Katong mga gi-answeran na to. See guys, I think that's it for today. See you tomorrow and see you around next week. Sige. Introduce ang next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.